Respected listener, before you try to fix your habits, your failures, or your lack of motivation, pause for a moment and ask yourself one uncomfortable question. What if the real force controlling your life is not laziness, not weakness, but a hidden wound you were never taught to see? Most people try to change their lives by fighting their behavior. They attack their procrastination, their addictions, their anger, their fear, their self-doubt. They wake up and promise discipline. They download productivity apps. They listen to motivational speeches at double speed. And yet, after weeks or months, they fall back into the same patterns. Then they blame themselves. They say, "Something is wrong with me. I must not want success badly enough. I must be broken." But what if the behavior is not the enemy? What if the behavior is a message? Imagine a child who grows up in a home where love is unpredictable, sometimes warm, sometimes distant. The child learns very quickly that being quiet avoids conflict, that being perfect earns attention, that pleasing others brings safety. That child grows into an adult who cannot say no, who feels guilty for resting, who feels anxious when not performing. The world praises them for being responsible, dependable, selfless. Inside they are exhausted and unseen. They think this is personality. In reality, it is adaptation. Hidden trauma does not always come from dramatic events. It often comes from small, repeated emotional absences. Not being heard, not being comforted, not being safe to express anger or sadness, not being allowed to be fully oneself. The nervous system learns from these moments. It shapes itself around survival. And survival patterns once formed do not ask for permission before running your adult life. You may think you're choosing your reactions, but often your reactions are choosing you. Have you ever overreacted to something small and later wondered why it hit you so hard? Have you ever felt rejected by a simple delay in a text message? Have you ever sabotaged a good opportunity and couldn't explain why? These moments are not random, they are echoes. The present touches the past, and the body remembers what the mind has forgotten. We live in a culture that asks, "What's wrong with you?" Rarely does it ask, "What happened to you?" That single change in question can change a life. Consider the man who cannot stop working. He says he is ambitious. He says he is driven. But when he sits still, he feels a strange emptiness and restlessness in his chest. Silence feels dangerous. Stillness feels like failure. As a boy, he only received praise when he achieved. Love was measured in results. His nervous system learned that worth equals performance. Now he is successful and miserable, productive and disconnected, admired and internally alone. His trauma is invisible because society rewards it. Or think of the woman who keeps choosing emotionally unavailable partners. She says she just has bad luck in love. But her earliest attachment taught her that love is distant, inconsistent, something to chase. Her system is not attracted to safety because safety feels unfamiliar. Chaos feels like chemistry. This is not stupidity, this is conditioning. Hidden trauma is not a life sentence, but it is a hidden script. And until you read the script, you will keep acting in the same play. Many people try to heal by judging themselves into change. They say, "I must be stronger, I must be more disciplined." But shame never creates lasting transformation. Shame freezes the nervous system. Compassion opens it. When you understand that your patterns once protected you, even if they now hurt you, something softens inside. You stop being your own enemy, and that is where real change begins. Your anxiety may have once been vigilance that kept you safe. Your emotional numbness may have once been protection from overwhelm. Your people-pleasing may have once preserved connection you could not afford to lose. These responses are intelligent. They are not defects. They are survival strategies that outlive the original environment. The tragedy is not that you adapted. The tragedy is that no one helped you update the adaptation. We are taught to override our feelings. Don't cry. Don't be weak. Be good. Be nice. Be strong. But emotions are not obstacles to success. They are signals of truth. When ignored long enough, they do not disappear. They go underground and speak through the body, through stress, burnout, chronic tension, compulsive habits, and unexplained fatigue. Some of the most driven people are the most wounded, some of the most together. People are held together by invisible strain. You might be listening right now and thinking, my childhood wasn't that bad. I was fed. I was clothed. I went to school. Trauma is not only about what was done to you, it is also about what did not happen for you. The hug that never came, the reassurance never spoken, the protection never provided, the emotional space never allowed. Absence can wound as deeply as presence can. A child does not need perfect parents. A child needs emotionally available ones, not always right, but responsive, not flawless, but attuned. When attunement is missing again and again, the child stops expressing authentic feelings and starts performing acceptable ones. That performance can last a lifetime. Then one day at 30 or 40 or 50, the person says, I don't know who I really am. Hidden trauma disconnects you from yourself first and from others second. You cannot deeply connect outward if you are cut off inward. That is why so many people feel lonely in relationships, empty in achievement, restless in comfort. The external life looks built. The internal life feels abandoned. Healing does not begin with techniques. It begins with curiosity, gentle, patient curiosity. Instead of saying, why am I like this, say, when did I learn this? Instead of saying, what is wrong with me, say, what is my pain trying to protect? Your reactions make sense in context. And when you find the context, you find compassion. When you find compassion, you create space. And in that space, new choices become possible. Right now, somewhere in your daily behavior, your hidden trauma is speaking. In the way you rush, in the way you avoid, in the way you cling, in the way you explode, in the way you shut down. Not as an enemy, but as a messenger. The goal is not to blame the past. The goal is to understand the present. You are not here to choose your caregivers. You are here to reclaim yourself. Responsibility for healing is not the same as blame for the wound. You did not choose the injury, but you can choose the recovery. And recovery begins with awareness, honesty, and a willingness to feel what you were once forced to hide. There is a powerful truth many people resist hearing. You are not controlled by your trauma because it is strong. You are controlled by it because it is unseen. Once seen, it begins to loosen its grip. In this journey together, we are not going to attack your habits. We are going to listen to them. We are not going to silence your symptoms. We are going to translate them, because behind every self-defeating pattern is a self-protecting story. And your story deserves to be heard. There is a moment in many people's lives that looks small from the outside but feels enormous on the inside. It is the moment when they realize, I am tired of fighting myself. Not tired of work, not tired of people, but tired of the constant inner war. The voice that criticizes every mistake, the fear that whispers before every opportunity, the tension that never fully leaves the body. That moment is not weakness. That moment is awakening. Most hidden trauma does not shout. It organizes your life quietly. It chooses what feels safe to try and what feels too dangerous. It decides how close you let people get. It determines whether rest feels peaceful or guilty. It even influences what you believe you deserve. Think about many times you called something your personality that was actually your protection. You say, I'm just not emotional. But once being emotional brought rejection, you say, I'm hyper-independent. But once depending on someone led to disappointment, you say, I'm a perfectionist. But once mistakes cost you love or safety. Protection becomes identity, and identity becomes prison. A young boy grows up in a house where anger explodes without warning. He learns to scan every face, every tone, every footstep. He becomes highly sensitive to emotional shifts. As an adult, he calls himself anxious, but what he really is trained. His nervous system is still guarding yesterday's danger. His body lives in a future that never arrives because it is stuck preparing for a past that already happened. A young girl grows up praised only when she is helpful and agreeable. When she says no, she is called selfish. When she cries, she is told she is dramatic. She learns to smile through discomfort. As an adult, she cannot feel her own boundaries. She says yes when she means no. She feels resentment but turns it inward as guilt. She calls herself too soft. In truth, she was shaped to abandon herself to keep connection. Hidden trauma is not stored as story first. It is stored as sensation. Tight shoulders, shallow breath, a stomach that knots when conflict appears, a racing heart when authority speaks. The body remembers before the mind explains. This is why logic alone cannot free you. You cannot think your way out of a wound that was formed before you had words. Many people try to argue with their feelings. Calm down. Don't be stupid. This isn't a big deal. But the body does not respond to argument. It responds to safety. If you want a different reaction, you must build a different sense of safety inside yourself. Notice how often you override your own signals. You are tired, but you push. You are hurt, but you joke. You are overwhelmed, but you scroll. You are lonely, but you distract. Each override teaches your inner system one message: your truth is not welcome here. Over time, you stop hearing your inner voice not because it disappeared, but because it was ignored too often. There is a cost to being strong in the wrong way. The world celebrates endurance without asking what you are enduring. It celebrates productivity without asking what you are escaping. It celebrates composure without asking what you are suppressing. Some of the most admired traits are trauma adaptations in formal clothing. The person who never needs help may be someone who learned help never came. The person who never stops giving may be someone who learned love must be earned. The person who never slows down may be someone who is afraid of what silence will reveal. If this feels uncomfortable to hear, that is okay. Truth often enters quietly and rearranges the furniture of the mind slowly. Let me tell you about a man who came for guidance because he kept losing motivation. That was his phrase. He said every project excited him at the beginning, then halfway through he felt heavy, foggy, resistant. He called it laziness. But when he spoke about his childhood, another pattern appeared. Every time he showed pride in his work as a child, someone important minimized it or compared him to someone better. Success became emotionally dangerous. Visibility became unsafe. His nervous system learned that shining leads to pain. So halfway to every finish line, an invisible brake activated. Not laziness, protection. Your resistance may be loyalty to an old emotional contract you never signed consciously. Healing begins when you stop asking, how do I force myself forward, and start asking, what inside me is afraid to move? This is where compassion becomes more powerful than pressure. Compassion is not self-pity. Compassion is accurate understanding. It says, of course you react this way. Look at what you learned. And in that moment, your system feels seen instead of judged. Seen systems relax. Judged systems defend. You cannot bully a wound into closing. There's also grief in this journey. Grief for what you did not receive. Grief for how long you blamed yourself. Grief for the years you lived disconnected from your own needs. Many people avoid healing because they fear this grief. But grief is not destruction. Grief is release. It is the nervous system updating reality that was then, this is now. When grief is allowed, energy returns. When truth is spoken, tension loosens. When feelings are felt, patterns soften. You might wonder, if trauma is hidden, how do I see it? Look at your repetitions. Repeated relationship conflicts. Repeated self-sabotage near growth. Repeated emotional triggers around similar themes. Repetition is memory trying to resolve itself. Your life is not punishing you, it is pointing to you. Another doorway is your strongest emotional reactions. Where your reaction is biggest, your history is closest. If small criticism feels like total collapse, there is an old bruise there. If minor distance feels like abandonment, there is an old separation there. Instead of shaming the reaction, investigate it with kindness. Say to yourself, this makes sense, and I want to understand it. Awareness is not passive. Awareness is active healing. Because once you see the pattern, you create a gap between trigger and response. In that gap lies choice, and choice is where freedom slowly grows. You do not need to fix your entire past to change your present. You only need to become honest about your inner experience now. Honesty is the bridge back to yourself. And here is something deeply hopeful. The same nervous system that learned fear can learn safety. The same heart that learned guarding can learn connection. The same mind that learned self-attack can learn self-support. Human beings are not rigid machines. We are adaptive organisms. What was learned can be relearned, but not through force, through relationship. Relationship with yourself first, and with safe others second. The hidden trauma that once controlled your life loses power the moment you turn toward yourself instead of away. There comes a quiet turning point in healing that no one applauds and no one sees from the outside. It is the moment you stop trying to become impressive and start trying to become honest. Not honest for others, but honest within your own inner world. You begin to notice what you actually feel instead of what you think you should feel. And that simple shift begins to change everything. For most of your life, you were trained to manage the outside before you understood the inside. Be polite, be productive, be successful, be normal. Very few people were taught how to sit with fear, how to listen to sadness, how to respect anger without becoming destructive. Emotions were treated like problems to control instead of signals to understand. So you learn to perform stability while carrying storms privately. Hidden trauma survives through disconnection. Disconnection from the body, from emotion, from truth. So healing must move in the opposite direction. Reconnection. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady and gentle. Start with the body, because the body is where the past still lives. Notice how you breathe when stressed. Notice how your jaw tightens when you feel judged. Notice how your shoulders rise when you expect conflict. These are not random tensions. They are stored memories without words. When you bring calm attention to them, you are not being weak or overly sensitive. You are reading the language of your nervous system. Try something simple. The next time you are triggered, instead of immediately reacting, ask yourself, what am I feeling in my body right now? Heat, pressure, tightness, hollowness, restlessness. Stay with the sensation for a few breaths. This interrupts the old automatic chain. You are teaching your system that awareness is available now, not just reaction. Many people are afraid that if they feel their pain, it will swallow them. But what you feel fully tends to move. What you suppress stays stuck. Emotions are like waves. Resisted waves become internal floods. Allowed waves rise, crest, and fall. There is also healing in updating your inner dialogue. Trauma installs a harsh inner voice. It sounds like authority, it sounds certain, it says you are behind, you are not enough, you always mess things up, don't even try. Most people assume this voice is truth. It is not truth. It is internalized survival messaging. It once tried to keep you small enough, careful enough, pleasing enough to stay safe. What if you answered that voice differently? Not with argument, but with grounded reassurance. I hear you. You're trying to protect me, but I am not there anymore. I have more choice now. This may feel strange at first, but inner language reshapes inner chemistry. The nervous system listens to the tone you use on yourself. Another powerful step is recognizing your adaptive roles. In difficult environments, children take on roles without realizing it. The caretaker, the achiever, the invisible one, the peacekeeper, the rebel. These roles help the family system function, but they can trap the adult identity. You may still be living inside a role that no longer serves your life. Ask yourself, who did I have to be to belong? Then ask, who am I allowed to be now? There is courage in disappointing an outdated expectation. There is growth in setting a boundary where silence once lived. Boundaries are not walls against others. They are doors that protect your inner home. When you say no with respect, you are not becoming selfish. You are becoming real. Relationships are where hidden trauma is most activated and most healed. Because wound, S formed in relationship need, safe relationship to update. This does not mean perfect people. It means people willing to be present, accountable, and emotionally available enough to repair misunderstandings instead of denying them. When someone listens to your truth without rushing to correct it, your nervous system learns a new possibility. When someone respects your no, your body learns safety. When someone stays during your vulnerability, your heart relearns trust. These moments are not small. They are corrective experiences. They rewrite emotional memory. But you must also become that safe relationship for yourself. If you abandon yourself internally, even the best external support will not feel sufficient. Self-abandonment looks like ignoring your limits, mocking your feelings, comparing your pain away. Self-support looks like pausing when overwhelmed, validating your emotion, choosing rest without apology. Progress in healing is often quiet. You react a little slower, you recover a little faster. You speak a boundary with a shaking voice instead of silent resentment. You choose one honest conversation instead of 10 polite lies. These are victories even if no one claps. Be careful not to turn healing into another performance. You do not need to become the most self-aware, the most emotionally evolved, the most spiritually advanced. That is the old achievement wound wearing new clothes. Healing is not a competition. It is a homecoming. There will be days when old patterns return. Does not mean you failed. It means the pattern is asking for more understanding. Instead of saying, I'm back to zero, say, I discovered another layer. Growth is not a straight line. It is a spiral. You meet similar themes at deeper levels with more awareness each time. One of the most transformative realizations you can have is this: your symptoms are not your enemies. Your anxiety, your numbing, your overworking, pleasing, they are signals pointing toward unmet needs and unresolved pain. When you listen instead of fight, symptoms become guides. You are not broken, you are patterned, and patterns can change with patient attention and compassionate practice. There is a version of you that is not driven by fear of rejection, not fueled by invisible shame, not ruled by old emotional contracts. That version is not someone you must manufacture. That version is someone you uncover when protection relaxes, and protection relaxes when it feels safe enough, often for the first time, to do so. There is something profoundly liberating that happens when you finally understand this truth. You were never fighting yourself. You were fighting for yourself in the only ways you knew how. Every coping pattern, every emotional shield, every self-protective habit was once an act of intelligence. The problem is not that you adapted. The problem is that no one told you when it was safe to stop adapting. Many people spend decades trying to upgrade their results without updating their inner safety. They chase confidence without building compassion. They chase discipline without building understanding. They chase success without building nervous system regulation. That is why the change doesn't last. The inner ground remains unstable. Real transformation is not built on pressure. It is built on safety plus truth. Safety allows the guard to lower. Truth shows the guard it is no longer needed. You might ask, what does living beyond hidden trauma actually look like in daily life? It does not mean you never feel fear again. It means fear is no longer the driver of every decision. It does not mean you never feel hurt. It means hurt no longer defines your identity. It does not mean you never get triggered. It means triggers become information instead of commands. You begin to pause more. You begin to choose more. You begin to pretend less. You say what you feel sooner instead of exploding later. You rest before collapse instead of after burnout. You choose relationships where you can be known instead of admired from a distance. You measure progress not by how impressive you appear, but by how honest you feel. There's also forgiveness in this stage, but not the forced kind. Not the kind that says nothing mattered. Real forgiveness is clarity without poison. You see what happened? You acknowledge the cost. You release the illusion that carrying the anger forever will repair the past. Forgiveness is not saying it was acceptable. It is saying you will no longer let it control your nervous system. And there is another forgiveness that matters just as much. Forgiveness toward yourself. For the years you stayed too long. For the times you chose survival over truth. For the moments you betrayed your own needs to keep connection. When you understand the emotional math you were living under, self-forgiveness stops being an excuse and becomes accuracy. You did what made sense given what you knew and what you feared. Many people worry that if they become self-compassionate, they will lose their edge. In reality, the opposite happens. Self-attack drains energy. Self-support releases it. When you are not fighting yourself internally, you have more strength available for meaningful action. Compassion is not the enemy of responsibility. It is the foundation of sustainable responsibility. As healing deepens, your definition of strength changes. Strength is no longer emotional suppression. Strength becomes emotional presence. Strength becomes the ability to stay with discomfort without abandoning yourself. Strength becomes telling the truth kindly instead of telling lies politely. You also begin to recognize hidden trauma in the world around you. You see that many harsh people are wounded people. Many controlling people are terrified people. Many addictive systems are soothing systems. This awareness does not make harmful behavior acceptable, but it makes it understandable. And understanding reduces blind hatred while preserving wise boundaries. You stop asking only, how do I win? And start asking, how do I remain human while I rise? There's a quiet dignity in a regulated nervous system, in a person who can feel deeply without drowning, who can say no without cruelty, who can say yes without self-betrayal, who can sit in silence without panic. That dignity is available to you, not because you force it, but because you cultivate it. This carefully healing hidden trauma is not about becoming a different person. It is about removing what prevented the real person from breathing freely. Underneath the adaptations, there has always been a core self, curious, connected, creative, alive. You are not building that self, you are uncovering it. And you do not have to do this perfectly to do it fully. Small daily honesty changes a life. One boundary, one felt emotion, one compassionate pause, one repaired conversation. These are not small psychologically, they are structural. If you have stayed with this message, something in you is already ready. Ready not for instant change, but for sincere change. Not for performance, but for truth. Not for self-improvement as punishment, but for self-understanding as liberation. The hidden trauma that once controlled your life loses authority each time you choose awareness over autopilot, compassion over shame, truth over performance, and connection over isolation. You are not late. You are not disqualified. You are not too damaged. You are responding exactly as a human nervous system responds to unmet needs and emotional pain. And because you are human, you are also capable of healing, integrating, and growing beyond what once limited you. Take a slow breath with me now, and let this land gently. You are not a project to be fixed.